Hi guys, it's Emily from Novel Novels and welcome to today's video. This is my April wrap-up part 2. Now, I always like to be talking to you guys. I'm a bit of a chatty person, aren't I? I thought I would just give you a bit of a lifestyle update. I don't know how many of you would have watched my gratitude journal, but April's been a bit of a hard month. My mum was in hospital last week, and before then we were preparing her for that, and yeah, we've had some. She wasn't 100% very well, but I don't feel comfortable talking about it. As to whether Charlie does, I don't know. Me and Charlie haven't spoken about it, so I'm not sure exactly how much detail I want to go into. But she did have a major stomach operation last week, and because of that, my mind's been elsewhere. I am going to be open that I'm myself currently in a bit of a bad state with my mental health. So I've made the decision to still going to do spoonies. I don't know whether you'll see a vlog, a weekly vlog or monthly vlog. I still don't know in May what I'm going to be doing, but I'm stepping back from my phone a bit more, so not necessarily looking at my phone as much. I'm trying to do some positive things for my health, like just sort of switching off a little bit more. And I tend to go, when I'm in this, I try and just take off any extra loads that I can be. So if I'm not as chatty online, if I'm not putting as much posts on, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be a better Spoonies host. You've got a video coming up with Spoonies telling you my Spoonies story, but I've been getting quite a lot of bad nightmares. So this has in turn affected my reading, in the fact that some people, when they're in a bad mental health zone, won't read. I go the other extreme, is that all I do is read, because when I'm in a bad place, reading is my comfort and it's my way of escaping. The only thing is, it does affect my rating of my books, because it takes a lot for a book to amaze me, because my mental health is not great. So it then takes a lot for me to get books that are going to completely wow me. So far, I'm filming this on the 1st of the month, and I may have cheated yesterday and started one of my books a couple of my books a day early, and certainly one of them is surprising me. So I don't know how my reading is going to be in May, but I just thought I'd give you a heads up that has affected my ratings for the books in April, and it has meant that I've read more. So yeah, thank you all for your support. I do keep getting these anonymous gifts online from my Amazon wish list, and whoever's doing this, I'm grateful. My books have been my help, and you'll see on the book haul at the end of the month, when I have been feeling like crap, I have just gone and bought a few more books, because we all deserve our comfort. So, enough rambling. You're only going to see 2 5-star books at the end of the month, because it has taken a lot for me to get the 5 stars. But let's give you my stats. So I read a total of 35 books. I read 32 off my unread TBR. One of them was an ebook, which was Restless Dolly Maunder for the Women's Prize, and 2 were library books for the Women's Prize. I'm not sure if I'm going to read Women's Prize books in May. I may well do. I'm not sure. I'm not going to put pressure on myself. But I want to read them in June, but I've had a bit of a Women's Prize blitz in April and March, so I'm going to be a bit gentle on myself. I gained 29 books. 6 of those were gifts, which I'm truly grateful for. I unhauled off my unread TBR, only unhauled 1. I think that's the thing now. You'll see less books being unhauled off my unread TBR, because I'm being a bit more finicky about what I buy. So if I bought something, normally I want to give it a go. I haven't actually had any DNFs this month, which was another good thing. But so, my April unread TBR was 314. My May unread TBR is 310. So I got it down by 4 books, which I'm happy about. I'm still going to go to the library in May. I'm going to get a couple of books out. So we will have to wait and see how that goes. I'm going to get a couple of books out from the library. I just don't know what. So I'm still going to enjoy myself. I still want to get my unread TBR down to 300 by the end of the year. It shouldn't be a problem. I should be able to do it within a couple of months, but I'll just have to wait and see. 300. This number is a number I'm quite happy with. It doesn't have to go down each month. I'm quite happy with that. So now for my genres. I read 1 sci-fi, 1 thriller, 1 literary fiction, 1 dystopic, 2 classics, 2 fantasies, 4 non-fiction, 11 contemporaries, and 12 historical fiction. So I read a real variety this month, but not many have amazed me. You can tell I only had 2 fantasies, because the fantasy, I think at least one of the fantasies has been my favourites. So, but I've read more historical fiction, and that actually is probably a good go-to for me this month, because historical fiction really does help me when I'm feeling like rubbish, because it makes me remember that, you know, people in the past have been through worse than I'm going through. I'm just having a wobble at the moment, partly with the mum stuff, partly with my physical health, and partly with just lots of things that are going on in my life that are a lot that I can't really, and there's not much I can do about any of them. Oh, you'll shoot me now. That's probably the best thing. But anyway, I've read 5 3-star books, 3 3.5-star books, 11 4-stars, 9 4.5 stars, but only 7 5 stars. And there's only been 2 in this second half. I need to get better in May at leaving some of the books that I'm excited about to the second half and stop reading them all at the start. I always do. I don't know why I worry, because my blooming TBR for the month is always less books than I can read. I need to get better at saving some of the good ones. We'll do that this month. Anyway, now I can tell you about the books I've read. I don't know how much I'm going to tell you, because I don't know how much I want to chat. I just don't know. You'll know how long this video is for me. So the first book that's 3 stars is The Cats We Met Along the Way, by Nadia Mawaki. I think this was a book that Jack sent me. She didn't love it, but it was down for it won a Waterstones book, won an award, and Jack didn't love it, and I'm sorry, Jack, I didn't love it either. It was a good book, but I wanted it more about the cats, and the cats hardly had any part in it. When the world is ending, who matters the most to you? And I think it was an okay book. It's like a YA middle grade dystopic kind of, if the world's ending, what would matter to you? It was okay. It just wasn't amazing. It was 3 stars. It was an okay book. It just could have done with more cats. Bit of a dystopic end of the world thing, like what would you do? And it's set in Malaysia. And it was quite a good book. It just didn't amaze me. Then to my lowest, I think this, I'm torn between this being my lowest rating, Western Name by Chetna Muru. I liked it more than some of the other people have. It was long-listed for the Women's Prize. I didn't get shortlisted. The rest of Dolly Maunda did. So this was joint 3 stars for the Women's Prize books with Western Name. It's an okay. Like, I'm not as loving it as much as Alice did, but I didn't hate it as much as some of the other people I know have read it thought. It's an okay book. If you like tennis, if you like family things, I think it's all right. But about an 11-year-old Gobi, I read it in like an hour. It is so short. So to read a Women's Prize book that short, it's less than 200 pages. I think I read it in like a morning. It's all right. Just didn't amaze me. Let's go back to the library. So it's an all right book. Now, a lot of the books, I will openly tell you, neither of my 2 5-star books are contemporary. So I think I've even rated contemporary less this month because I've just not felt it. The first one, I've got 2 contemporaries that are 3.5 stars, and considering the authors, I was quite surprised. The first one is The Place We Met by Isabel Broom. I've loved her books, but this is probably the one I loved the least. It's set in Lake Como, Italy, in New Year's Eve, and it's the perfect place to fall in love, or the perfect place for everything to fall apart. The 2 lead characters, Lucy and Taggy, they're okay, and it's an okay book. It's an okay contemporary, but it goes down with one of those contemporaries that, will I remember? Probably not. Whereas A Year and a Day and Then, Now and Always by this author, I've loved a lot more, and this one just didn't wow me. Like, Lucy and Taggy may not know it all, but their lives are about to collide. It's New Year that may begin with fireworks, but how will it end? I should have maybe read it at New Year, maybe, and looking at it, because normally a lot of her books are summer books. But this was just okay. It wasn't, if you want to read Isabel Broom, don't necessarily start at this, because it didn't amaze me as much. The setting in Lake Como in Italy, it is, like, the setting's quite good, but it just didn't wow me, so it's a charity shop. The next one was this was okay. This was like 3.5 stars. It's quite good. Lucy Diamond's books, again, are some I've loved, some I haven't. I've got some with my sisters, which I'm going to be reading this summer. Wait and see what this is. This is one of her older books. So again, it could be that it's one of her earlier books and that's why it didn't wow me. Is Mr. Jones really Mr. Right? Meet the woman who was in love with 3 very different brothers. And the brother thing, the family thing, I liked. But the mum in this, I hated. I hated her until the end. And it was just... She had reasons to hate her, but there is a trigger for something in here. So if you want to know that, let me know. But 3 sisters... Izzy is determined to escape her troubled past with a new start by the sea, but flirtatious Charlie Jones is causing complications. I'm not going to tell you which of the brothers is my favourite, but yeah. Alyssa has been happily married to loyal Hugh for years, but craves excitement. Maybe it's time to spice things up. And then Emma's relationship with David was once fun and romantic, but trying for a baby has taken its toll. Then they've got a family B&B, family elements. It's a fun. If you want something fun, but be aware that there are triggers. If you like something with family, then this is good. The family element, this is amazing. But there are some triggers in this, so be warned, please, before you go into that. It's not as light as you want it to be. And now for the 4 stars. And you guys know, 4 stars for me is really, really good. I'm really happy with that. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, on this, for this month, I was doing Katie's reads on Doodah. Katie's reads on, where have I put that? The TBR Clearout. And my goal was to shift 20 books off my unread TBR, and I shifted 32. So I did smash it. Thank you, Katie. I did really use my TBR. Now to my 4 stars, sorry. So 4 stars are good books that are good, and books that I'm really glad I read. And I don't think I'm going to keep any of them, but they were good. But this has really been a 4-star and 4.5 star month. The first one is one that I was reading over 2 months, and this is The Crimson Petal and the White by Michael Faber. It was a book that I read over 2 months, so it is a massive book. It was 835 pages, and I'm glad I read it over 2 months. And I think I read this book right, because at no point did I get lost. At no point did I forget what I was reading, so it did have me gripped for the 2 months. It is set in, I think it's like Victorian, like set in the 1870s, so Victorian times. And it's about like Sugar, an alluring 19-year-old prostitute in the brothel of peculiar Mrs. Castaway, and she yearns for a better life. And she's visited by William Rackham, a somewhat reluctant heir to the Rackham perfumeries. And you've got her story and then William Rackham's story. Yeah, you can tell it's a male author. There are some bits in this that I don't like the writing with. There were some bits I was like, oh, I wouldn't read it. But, and that's me being sexist and me being judgmental, but there are some things I can tell were written differently to what I'm used to, and it is very much there's some graphically sexual scenes in this, very graphic, which you can expect because it's about a prostitute, but very graphic scenes about, they've also got mental health scenes, some real triggers, some really difficult stuff, but the writing was really good, and again, I kept wanting to go back to it, so for a book to be read over 2 months and one that I kept wanting to go back to is a compliment. It didn't amaze me, but it was a really good book, and I'm glad I read it. Now to a Christy Barlow book. This is, I think, one of the books I read by this author I rated 5 stars, and this isn't one that's like 5 stars, so amazing, and it's part of a series, so I don't know if I would have enjoyed this more if I would have read other books in the series first. And when Julia Coleman meets Flynn Carter again in the cosy village of Hartcross, it can only mean trouble. Flynn might be rich, brooding and sexy, but Julia knows firsthand that he's ruthless, and she plans to watch his every move. So this was good, and I love Flynn. Flynn is a character that's flawed but human, and he is like the male character. I properly loved him. And Julia discovers Flynn's plans for a beautiful star-crossed manor. Her greatest fears come true. But Julia is so she's another character. You can see that she's obviously been hurt in the past, and Hartcross, and the community aspects of this is really good. And it's a series I'll definitely dip in and out of. I probably won't necessarily get it full price, but it's a good series, and the characters in this are good, and I love the community. It's set, I think, where is Hartcross? Is Hartcross in Scotland? I think it's set in Scotland, and this is a lovely book, and it's one that really good contemporary, and I think Christy Barlow is she's a new contemporary author to me that I read last year, I think, and she's definitely a good one, and I'm really looking forward to carry. Yeah, it is set in Scotland, so I've got a lot of books set in Scotland this month. But this was definitely a good contemporary. Then to a book that I read because my mum, so I'd read all the books on my TBR, and my mum said to read this book, which was sent to me by Charlie from Charles Heathcote, Margaret Dickinson wartime book. It is a very big book, so to read this did take a few days. It's not as set in Bletchley Park as I was expecting. It's more about the two girls that go to Bletchley Park. So for at least half the book, you're having their backup, their storylines. And both of them have got very different lives. So we start off in 1929 with Mattie's storyline, and she's from in the back streets of Sheffield. So she's obviously from a slightly poorer, very poorer range, and she has a very hard start in life. So there's a big chunk of the book that is about that, and then there's the same story. Then you break it from when that leads us up to the Bletchley Park bit where she goes to Bletchley Park, and then you have another big chunk which is Victoria Hamilton's story from again the same time, but she's from a very well-off family, but her life is very different as well, and she's got her own very big obstacles. And then you do the chunk then until the Bletchley Park bit, and then less of the book is when their two bits are combined at Bletchley Park, and I probably would have wanted more at Bletchley Park for me. That's my personal bit, but it was a very long book, so again I don't know how it would have worked, but the way their two friendships sort of merged together, I thought it was a really good book, really, really fantastic, and one I definitely enjoyed, but it could have been a bit more Bletchley Park. And then to one of the books that I read for People April, and that is Matron Knows Best, Jane Woodcock. I read this probably at the wrong time. I read this when my mum was actually in hospital, over the day or two that my mum was actually in hospital. And my mum, this was the day I read this on the day of mum's op. And although it starts off in the 1960s, in 1966 in the nurse's story, I read this way too much at that time, and I think that made it harder for me to read, and I found it like really, really emotional. And it's about a hospital wards, and you get the nursing in all the different places you can meet. And this is a very fascinating book. I got it actually last year in Bognor on a holiday in Bognor at a charity shop. But it's probably one of the best NHS books I've read. Very good. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, but I did read it at the wrong time. Then to my book that I read as a buddy read with Cat from Brews and Reviews, and this is Set on You by Amy Lee. It had a potential to be 5 stars, and then there were certain bits that just knocked it down to 4 stars. I'm going to carry on the series. I've got like the second book, and I'm going to read the third book, which she's only just got out. And I thought at the start, body positivity, it's curvy fitness instructor Crystal Chen. She built her career-shattering gym stereotypes. She breaks all the career stereotypes, and you've got firefighter Scott Ritchie, so you've got sexy firefighter. Very stereotypical, very like sexy firefighter thing. And I thought at the start, body positivity, she's curvy, and then it took a twist, and it was a bit less body positivity, and I felt a bit upset. And it's just the bit that, you know, it could have done the size thing a bit better, but that's just me. That's my personal problems. But it was a very good book. I flew through it. Really enjoyed it. Buddy reading it with Kat. We both enjoyed the book. It just didn't amaze me as much. There were points where I was laughing my head off, and I thought it was really good. So it was a really good book, but it just ending let it down a little bit for me. Then to my last 4-star, which I don't know what I'm going to do with this, guys, because again, Charlie sent me this, and it's a proof copy, so I can't take it to charity shop, because we can't sell it at the charity shop. And so if anyone wants this, please let me know. It's a very big copy. I might just keep it on my shelf somewhere. I just don't know where my shelves are going to break. This is Henry VIII, King and Court, and this is a non-fiction book on the court of Henry VIII. And it is very, very fascinating. Alison Weir did a really good job of this. And I've been saying I wanted to read books about Henry VIII and not just the wives. And I found this very, very fascinating. And it was a big book, but a lot of it's, like at the back of it, you've got all the abbreviations, the notes and references. So it's only about 500 pages, even though it looks massive. So I did read it well. I'm probably going to keep it and put it on my shelf somewhere. I just might put it right down the bottom. So if I want like a reference book, it might be quite good for that. And actually, no, the last 4-star book is Desert Dawn. It's another non-fiction book. So I read 3 non-fiction books which are 4 stars. This was very, very interesting because it was about Waris Daria. I can't say her name. But it's about a fashion model, UN ambassador, and courageous spirit. Waris Daria is a remarkable woman. She was born into a traditional family of tribal desert nomads in Somalia, and she's told her story, enduring female circumcision at 5 years old, running away at 12 through the desert in order to escape an arranged marriage. After being discovered by Terence Donovan, she worked as a cleaner in London, and she became a top model. And this is really interesting, and it does talk about female, that FGM, which is very female circumcision, which is very triggering. And it's very hard to think about how many girls have had this female genitalia mutilation, it's called. It's very, very triggering, very, very wrong. We really think about, I know they do it for religion, so it's not my part to say why people do this, but it's heartbreaking to think that these girls go through that and they're fighting against it. And Desert Dawn is really interesting, and yeah, it's a very interesting book, but one I definitely recommend. Not necessarily one I'm going to reread. It's very heartbreaking. So I've got 4.5 star books to show you now, and this book video is already 20 minutes. The first is The Cypress Maze. It's a really good book. I'm going to lend this to Mum at some point. It's set in Tuscany in 1943. Half it's set there, and then you've also got the current timeline, which is 2015. And Tess arrives in the villa like there, and she gets Beatrice's stories and Tess's stories. The two timelines do merge very perfectly, and you really get some really good things. It is a very emotional book. Thinking about what happened in the World War II in a different setting, and I think Fiona Valpy is an amazing, amazing writer. And it's war closing in, and the way the current timelines goes, you again there are another storyline about you start off with it, so I can safely say about it. And about motor neurone disease. So motor neurone disease is in the current storyline. It's basically about our lead character in the current timeline, Tess. She loses her husband to motor neurone disease right at the start of the book, and she then goes off. That's why she goes off to Tuscany to go and stay with Beatrice. And then you've got Beatrice's storyline. It is tackling some very hard things, but it's a very, very good book, and the writing is incredible. Short book. It's only about less than 300 pages, I think. But it's one I really think I recommend it to everybody. So I think I'm going to let Mum that. Then to a Lucinda Riley book, one of the biggest books on my TBR, and that is The Butterfly Room by Lucinda Riley. You all know I love the Seven Sisters books. I've loved this author's work. Even though it's 4.5 stars, it was an incredible 4.5 stars. You've got the current timeline of Posey Montague, and she's approaching her storyline. And then you've got her past. So that is set again in the World War II, in her past, and her story. That's basically Posey's storyline in the past and the current timeline. Family elements. It's just a really good book. It's a really, really good one, and one I definitely recommend to people. It's got a mystery element in it, which I thought was really good. She just doesn't disappoint. Lucinda Riley's so sad to hear that she's passed away, because she just writes incredible books, and even though it was chunky, I flew through it because I couldn't put it down. It's an incredible, incredible book. Then the last two books were the last two books I read of the month that were 4.5 stars. So two contemporaries. We actually did have some sun, not really believe it today. So I decided while it was sunny, I wanted to read some light summary books. The last book I read for the month was the Little Italian Hotel by Peter Patrick. And this is a contemporary, and it was a good book. I don't know if I should have rated it 4 or 4.5 stars realistically. That's why I'm glad in some ways Goodreads only does 4 stars. And Ginny listens to people. She's an on-air like doodah advisor. I can't think. I'm sorry. So she basically gives people advice and stuff. And her perfect home line turns out to be not her perfect home life. So she booked to go on holiday with her husband. And then just when she tells him about this holiday, he then says, I want a divorce. So she decides to put up 4 spaces for people that are heartbroken online. And she says, I'll pay for your holiday, you just pay for your flights. Tell me if you've got heartbreak. And she gets her producer person to choose 4 people. And she goes on holiday with these 4 people. They've each got their own storylines, which do have their own chapters, which are sort of separated in this perfectly. And they all go on holiday together, and they go to sort of near Venice in the hills of Bologna, so Italy. And yeah, it's really good, really, really good, really enjoyable. Some really emotional bits, a bit of romance, not very much, but friendship. Friendship's the key in this, and I really did enjoy it. Then to an Ali McNamara book, which you know I love Ali McNamara. This is set in St. Felix, where a lot of her books are set. They're good books. It's not one of my favourites by the author, but it's good. And it's Poppy Carmichael's spirits aren't lifted by the pretty West Country spring. Inheriting her mother's flower shop, she doesn't like flowers. And Poppy's determined to do the best for the sake of her grandmother. Her grandmother passed away and left her this bit of magic in it, which kind of gave it an extra sparkle. You've got Jake the gorgeous, the gruff but gorgeous local flower grower, and who's there is like romance. You can kind of predict who she's going to end up with in the end. Bit of romance, bit of friendship, bit of magic. St. Felix. Going to be a book I enjoyed. Really did enjoy it. I don't think. What's really weird is I'm not going to keep any of those books, which is really weird. It's telling you that I've not had the best read. It's not been the best read. Not, like I said, read loads. There is only one book that I'm going to keep, and that's because it's the only book that's a 5-star that I own my physical copy of, and that's The Hat Makers by Thames Inn Merchant. I added this to my TBR last minute. I think I read it over the weekend, and it was just what I needed. I think I read it like Thursday or Friday, which is a couple of days after Mum's up, and it was just what I needed. It's magical realism. It's the first in a series. I'm going to look for the third book comes out in paperback next year. I will get it. I'm going to keep this series. I'm going to keep it. I want the second book. I'm going to look for the second book in the works. I think that's where I found the works, and I'm going to look for it and see if I can find it not too expensive. The Map Makers is the next book, and it's left me wanting the next book. So it's a spellbinding adventure world filled with magic and adventure. It's just magic, it's fantasy, it's middle grade, but it's one I can actually read. Cordelia comes from a family of magical hat makers. In her world, crafting items from enchanted ingredients is rare and special skill. Cordelia can't wait to make her first hat, but then her father disappears and someone seems to be using the maker enchantments to start a war. Exciting, fun, fantasy, brilliant. I loved it. I love the pictures in this. I love the spell bits, the flowers. It's just, I can't describe. The pictures at the start of the chapter are gorgeous. It's just fun. Like, I absolutely loved it, and it was just what I needed. Just what I needed to cheer me up. Completely the opposite to my next one. That is my favourite book of the month, and even the only problem is, got this from the library Botherness Night. It's now been shortlisted for the Women's Prize. If you haven't read it, why not read it? It's my favourite book of the Women's Prize. It's up there, top favourite. I have to get my own copy. It's now coming out in paperback, so I will buy my own copy. It needs to be bought before the end of the year, because for it to go on my favourites for the year, I need my own physical copy of it. I don't like having a favourite for the year that I don't own. That's what annoys me. Charlie, you made me get this from the library, and now I bloody loved it. It's about 16-year-old Sashi wants to become a doctor, but over the next decade, where her vicious civil war tears through her family hometown of Jaffna, her dream spins off course as she sees those around her, including her 4 beloved brothers and their friend, get swept into violent political ideologies and their consequences. Desperate to act, she must ask herself, is it possible to move through life without doing any harm? This book broke me, like actually physical tears. I actually had to put it down 100 pages from the end, purely, and maybe even less than that, purely and simply because I needed to stop because I was crying so much I couldn't physically bloody read. It was that good. I want this to win the Women's Prize because I absolutely loved it. To me, it was better than Soldier Sailor, and so I thought Soldier Sailor was good. To me, it was even better than some of the other 5-star books I've read by this, or it was just amazing. I absolutely loved it. It beat Nightbloom. Nightbloom's obviously not been long shortlisted. To me, it's either this or Soldier Sailor that should win the award. And I just loved it. It was one that I'm so grateful for the Women's Prize to get me to read, and I'm grateful for the library because this knocked me off my skin. So, what books have been your favourite of the month? Let me know down below. If you've got to the end of this video, because one of my favourite books is The Hat Makers, give me a hat emoji. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, not subscribed yet, my ding-a-ling. And I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.